A 5-year-old American Saddlebred named Mr. Spots traveled to Kentucky to compete at one of the biggest and most celebrated horse shows in the country. He arrived at the Kentucky Exposition Center with Lisa Lesch and the people who cared for him, prepared him, and expected to watch him enter the ring at the World's Championship Horse Show. But Mr. Spots would never make it into the arena. On Wednesday evening, August 19th, Mr. Spots died inside his temporary stall in what has been described as an electrocution. He was only 5 years old. He should have had years of life ahead of him, years of training, competition, treats, quiet mornings, and ordinary evenings with the people who loved him. Instead, his life ended inside a stall that was supposed to keep him safe. His death has devastated the people who cared for him, forced the evacuation of 2 temporary stabling tents, and raised serious questions about the electrical equipment being used around horses at major competitions. A preliminary inspection reportedly found that an electrical cable not provided by the show had a short in it. Investigators are still trying to determine precisely what failed and how electrical current apparently reached the metal framework of Mr. Spots' stall. A necropsy is also expected to be performed by the University of Kentucky Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory. But no investigation can return Mr. Spots to the people who loved him. No report can undo those final moments, and no explanation will ever make the journey home without him any less painful. The tragedy happened at approximately 8:30 Wednesday evening, shortly before the opening of the 2026 Kentucky State Fair. Horses and trainers were preparing for the World Championship Horse Show, which was scheduled to begin on August 22nd. Mr. Spots was stabled in Tent F, one of the temporary stabling areas at the Kentucky Exposition Center. According to Lesch, people at the stable were setting up decorations while the horses were eating. It should have been an ordinary evening before the beginning of the show. Then Mr. Spots suddenly began behaving strangely. Lesch said he initially acted as though something was biting him. He began jumping and running in circles inside his stall. Imagine how confusing and frightening that must have been. A horse who had been eating normally was suddenly reacting to a danger no one could see. There was no obvious animal attacking him and no visible threat from which he could escape. Lesch led Mr. Spots out of the stall. When she eventually brought him back inside, the frightening behavior reportedly started again. She called the veterinarian, but the entire ordeal unfolded in approximately 10 minutes. According to Lesch, Mr. Spots was fatally shocked when his metal shod hoof stepped onto a metal crossbar. There was reportedly no time to understand the full danger before it was too late. After Mr. Spots died, all remaining horses in Tent F and neighboring Tent E were evacuated out of what Kentucky venues described as an abundance of caution. Imagine the fear and confusion in those moments. Trainers and grooms were being told to move their horses immediately. People were trying to understand what had happened while also attempting to protect every other animal in the area. In the middle of that activity, the people who love Mr. Spots were confronting the unimaginable. The horse they brought to Kentucky was gone. This was not an elderly horse peacefully reaching the end of a long life. This was not a planned goodbye after an illness could no longer be treated. Mr. Spots was 5 years old, and his death appeared to have been sudden, unexpected, and terrifying. That is what makes this story so painful. His owners trusted the stall. It is where we place our horses when we believe they are protected. We bed it carefully, hang their water, give them hay, check the door, and walk away believing they are secure. At a horse show, that trust becomes even more important. The environment is unfamiliar. There are new sounds, new people, temporary buildings, different horses, and constant activity. The stall is supposed to be the horse's quiet place. It should be where the horse can eat, rest, and recover. For Mr. Spots, that stall may have become the source of the danger. According to Kentucky venues, electrical inspectors began examining the property and checking the temporary electrical equipment after the incident. The state's Department of Housing, Building, and Construction is responsible for inspecting and permitting temporary power, and the department has reportedly been working with fair officials to understand what went wrong. Lesch said workers checked and tested the temporary power boxes after the barns were evacuated. She also said a fair official took possession of an electrical cable that had been secured along the top of the stalls. Investigators preliminarily believe that a cable not supplied by the show had a short in it. However, officials are still trying to trace the electrical fault through the cable, power boxes, and connected equipment. That distinction matters. The investigation has not yet produced a final public explanation of precisely where the failure occurred or whether a fan itself was responsible. The cord may have been associated with equipment used around the stall, but we should not present a specific appliance as the confirmed cause until investigators release that conclusion. Other concerning electrical problems were also reported. According to the updated reporting, a groom at another stable farther down the temporary barn said they received a shock while attempting to plug a cord into a power box before Mr. Spots began showing distress. Another stable in a neighboring temporary barn reportedly had 5 fans short out. Those reports raised disturbing questions about whether the problem was limited to one damaged cable or whether other electrical conditions contributed to the danger. Officials have said electrical inspectors continued examining the property to verify compliance with established policies. After an evaluations, tents E and F were cleared for show use. But the investigation into Mr. Spot's death remains important because an electrical accident can involve several contributing factors. A damaged cable may have been involved, but investigators still need to establish where the electrical current originated, how it reached the stall, why the available safety systems did not stop it, and whether every piece of connected equipment was appropriate for the electrical supply. The necropsy may also help establish whether electrocution caused Mr. Spot's death and whether there is physical evidence showing how the current traveled through his body. Electrical injuries are not always obvious from the outside. There may be burns where the electricity entered or exited, but sometimes there is very little visible evidence. An electrical current passing through the body can disrupt the heart's rhythm, interfere with breathing, trigger violent muscle contractions, damage nerves, and cause sudden collapse or death. It can happen terribly fast. Horses may also react violently to an electrical shock. They may bolt, rear, jump, fall, run in circles, or desperately attempt to escape because they cannot understand where the pain is coming from. Mr. Spot's initial behavior reportedly looked as though something was biting him. That is one of the most heartbreaking details of this story. He may have been trying to escape something that no one around him could see, and the people who loved him may not have understood the danger until it was already too late. Fans and extension cords are common around horse barns, especially during hot summer shows. Fans circulate air, reduce heat accumulation, discourage flies, and make temporary stalls more comfortable. During a large summer event, a fan can be an important part of protecting a horse from heat stress. But horses, metal stalls, electricity, dust, moisture, and temporary equipment can become a dangerous combination when electrical safety fails. A horse can chew a cord, step on it, pull it loose, or catch it on a bucket or hay. A metal panel can pinch a cable. Repeated movement can wear away the protective insulation. A cord may be damaged internally even when its outer covering appears relatively normal. Temporary stabling introduces additional risks. Exhibitors may be using unfamiliar outlets, temporary power, metal stall frames, and electrical systems installed specifically for the event. There may be spilled water, urine, damp ground, metal hardware, dust, and hundreds of people and horses moving through the area. If exposed electrical wiring comes into contact with a metal stall frame, that metal could potentially become energized. A person wearing insulated shoes might not immediately realize electricity is present. A horse wearing metal shoes or standing on damp ground could be affected differently. If the horse touches two surfaces with different electrical potentials, the horse's body may complete the circuit. That is why an animal may appear distressed, while nearby people do not immediately feel anything. It is also why people must be extremely careful when responding to a suspected electrical emergency. If a horse appears to be receiving an electrical shock, do not immediately grab the horse or touch the surrounding metal. The instinct is completely understandable. When we see a horse frightened or suffering, everything in us wants to reach out and help. But if the horse or stall is energized, touching either one could allow the electricity to pass through the rescuer's body. If it can be done safely, the electricity must first be disconnected at its source. Other people and animals should be kept away. Facility personnel and emergency responders should be contacted, and a veterinarian should evaluate the horse immediately. That advice sounds calm when we first discuss it after the fact. Experience it would be anything but calm. Imagine seeing your horse in distress and being unable to understand what was hurting him. Imagine leading him out, believing the danger might have passed, only to watch it begin again when he returned to his stall. Imagine calling for help and having only minutes to act. We should not invent details about Mr. Spot's final moments, but what his caretakers has described is already heartbreaking enough. His death should make every horse owner, trainer, barn manager, and show organizer examine the electrical equipment around their horses. Cords used in barns and temporary stabling should be properly rated for the environment and for the amount of power required by the connected equipment. Household extension cords should not be treated as permanent barn wiring. Fans should be suitable for dusty agriculture environments and mounted securely where horses cannot reach them. Cords should be protected from teeth, hooves, metal edges, water buckets, and areas where moisture can accumulate. They should not be crushed, sharply bent, punctured by fasteners, or positioned where horses can rub against them. Connections should be regularly checked for cracked insulation, exposed wiring, loose plugs, excessive heat, discoloration, buzzing sounds, or unusual odors. Electrical systems around horses should also have appropriate ground fault protection. A ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, is designed to shut off the electricity quickly when current begins traveling along an unintended path. A GFCI cannot prevent every accident, and it cannot replace proper wiring, appropriate equipment, or professional inspections, but it may provide an important layer of protection. Power strips and extension cords should not be connected together repeatedly. Breakers should never be reset over and over without determining why they are tripping. A breaker that repeatedly shuts off may be warning you that the circuit is overloaded, equipment is damaged, or electricity is traveling somewhere it should not. If a fan shorts out, a person feels a shock, or a cord appears damaged, the equipment should be disconnected and the entire system examined before horses are allowed to remain near it. Electrical safety at a horse show also cannot rest on one person alone. Facilities are responsible for maintaining their electrical infrastructure. Show management must create and enforce clear rules for temporary equipment. Exhibitors must make sure the cords, fans, and other devices they bring are safe and compatible with the available power. Qualified electrical professionals must examine the complete system, especially when hundreds of stalls may be drawing power at the same time. This is not about assessing blame before the investigation is complete. It is about asking whether every reasonable precaution was taken, determining exactly what failed, and preventing another horse from suffering the same fate. Mr. Spots was not simply an entry on a show schedule. He was not merely a horse in an official statement. He was a 5-year-old saddlebred with a name, a personality, a routine, and people who knew every detail about him. They knew what treats he liked, how he behaved in his stall, what made him nervous, and where he liked to be scratched. They knew the sound of his footsteps and the expression on his face when he recognized someone he trusted. They likely spent countless early mornings and late nights feeding him, grooming him, training him, checking his legs, cleaning his stall, and preparing him for this event. There may have been show clothes hanging nearby, a stall car bearing his name, and plans for the classes he would never enter. Now, instead of remembering the excitement of watching him compete, the people who love Mr. Spots will remember the stall where everything ended. The World's Championship Horse Show will continue. Horses will enter the arena, champions will be crowned, photographs will be taken, and ribbons will be awarded. But for Lisa Lesch and everyone who cared for Mr. Spots, this show will forever be remembered for the horse who never had the opportunity to enter the ring. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, I am not AI. If you listen closely, you can hear me breathing.